welcome to the Ultimate Hockey Show. Remember us? For the first time since February the 18th, we were on the air. We took an unexpected bye week last week and then had to take a 24-hour hiatus. Well, because I had scheduling issues that arose. Thank you for your patience. We were back, and we should be back pretty much every week now, except on one occasion, which we'll get into when the time comes. Michael Joe joined by Rich Petty. Good evening, Rich. It feels like I have not seen you in forever. Never mind, talk to you on this show in forever. How are you?
Very, very good. How about you?
I'm good. The playoff life is busy, let me tell you, but I would not exchange it for 1 minute. The excitement of playoff hockey has brought to me and my company. So I'm pretty happy. And tonight is another game night. 6:30 at the Hockey for All Center. It's game one of the MFHL semifinal featuring the Yellowhead Chiefs and the Winnipeg Ice. Chad Erickson will have the call of that game for us beginning at 6:30 if you want to catch it after our show and don't want to watch the Jets take on the Seattle Kraken. Red, ho-hum, ho-hum. We looked at it. We had 8 games since we last had a show. The Jets went 6-2, including an incredible weekend where I have a story for you. Was working all weekend. Watched the first 2 periods of the Carolina game. Said, this isn't going to go very well. Go downstairs and set up my work stuff. Peeked over at a TV up above my head. Realized it's 3-2. Watch another 45 seconds. And Mark Shifley scores on the power play to tie the game. And then happened to see Peter Kashetkov's little mishap, which led to Sean Monahan scoring at the time his 7th goal as a member of the Winnipeg Jets. Has since added an 8th, which is really, really good. So let's start there. What did you think of the Winnipeg Jets this recent weekend? Because I think those are the most exciting games of the batch. Yep. And also some areas of concern later on, which we'll back up to talk about maybe the Dallas game. But first, have a fun on the weekend and how one period, Rick, can literally change the entire trajectory of a road trip.
Yeah. Actually, I was just I actually played hockey last night. And one of the guys that I play with is, he's a hockey fan too. He watches the Jets all the time. And so it was great for him. Because a Saturday morning game, 11:30. He watches the first 2 periods. The Jets are down 3-0. And he says, it's a waste of time. Why am I watching this? I got to go outside with my kids. I'm going to go play.
Did he really all turn the TV off?
Well, he didn't have it still recording, but he was outside. I guess I think there's an app that you can get on your phone that every time the Jets score or your favorite team scores, it'll vibrate the phone so you can get
I have that one too.
Updates, right? Or whatever. So he's in the yard, he's playing with his kids. He's a little bit younger than I am, so his children are a little bit younger. They're rolling around the snow, they're snowmobiling, they're making snow forts, whatever. All of this phone buzzes, and he buzzes again. He's like, what's going on? 3-1, 3-2, 3. He's like, what's going on? What is this? So we were just killing ourselves laughing. And then I had a look online because I didn't realize this. I don't know if you realized this either. The Jets are they've been very good this year in general. They're the second best team right now, as of right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're the second best team in the NHL in terms of winning percentage, only behind the Florida Panthers, who are number 1. I think the Florida Panthers winning percentage is 702 or 703, and the Jets are a 695 or something. They're in second place. So, but not everybody's had the same amount of games, so you can't really compare points to points, right? You have to look at winning percentage within the games you've played. But they're one of the best teams defensively. They've not let other teams score a lot of goals. They've done a lot of good things. But one thing they haven't done well is come back. So up until this weekend, I was just looking at the stat. It said when the Jets trail going into the third period, either by 1 goal, 3 goals, whatever it is, their record up until this weekend was 2-16-1. And they've only lost 16 games this year. So out of all 16 games, they were going into that they lost, they went into the third period down, and they stayed down, right? But so they only came back twice in the third period all year long to win a game after being down. And they did it on the weekend twice after all year having only
basically doubled their season output in.
Yeah, now they're 4-16-1 in hockey games where they're going into the third period down. So all that to say, I don't think a lot of people had confidence that, when you see the Jets down 3-0, and especially, although you would probably agree, it's not like they were horribly outplayed. Like they were outplayed a little bit here and there in that period, but they had chances to score and they had some bad puck luck. I just think some things went a little bit sideways on them there. And then, oh my gosh, it didn't actually affect them because I don't think Carolina scored on either of the power plays. But those two, Michael, I know I talk about this every time. The reffing is just like, what are they watching? Did you see that penalty call on Pionk?
Don't even get me started about
he's just shoving it at the puck, and he's shoving him, and he shoves him down, and he gets a roughing penalty. I mean, what are they playing out there? Are they playing crokinole? Are they playing lawn darts? Or are they playing hockey? Like, what's going on here? Like, a guy's not allowed to push a guy when he's got the puck and push him over. So the guy falls over and lands awkwardly, and because he's not good on his skates, that's a penalty. That was a joke. And then what was even worse was that when Svechnikov turned in the corner and Schmidt had a stick. It was behind him, and Svechnikov just he has no edge on his skates. He flops out, and they call him for tripping. Michael, it's unbelievable. That reffing is just bad. And the trip, you could say, well, his stick was there, and it's a fast game. But you know what? Something like that, because it's so bad. They should have somebody. They should have it in ear, bud, and somebody.
What they do for football
head office. No, exactly. Somebody in NHL head office should look at that and say, yeah, Steve, Joe, Dave, whatever. That's not a penalty. You missed that one. Like you can't call that. Like it's not even. It's not like his stick was in front of his skates. It was behind him, and the guy fell on his own. And you're gonna call. You can't call penalty on that. Like, and it's one thing when it's a game now. It's mid-season. What if this is like in a playoff game and you're tied 3-3 in the final game of a 7-game series and they make a call like that? That is not good. It's not good.
Rich, I have a story about that penalty call. For quick content, I had a game at 2:00 in the afternoon. On that Saturday. So I happened to be watching that portion of the game with an individual involved in the hockey game at 2:00 when that tripping penalty happened. And basically what they said, I cannot repeat on this show. But there was a pretty animated individual that I was watching with, who I would consider to have pretty good knowledge of the game, both playing and elsewhere. And this individual said not a good penalty, and actually said exactly what you suggested. There should be a challenge system or an honor system. Which I think, to be honest, another way to do this, I think they should institute the coach's challenge, where you can review one penalty a game, and if it stands up to be a penalty, it's another penalty. But if it's an opportunity to wash out a penalty, as an example, then it's not a penalty. They do it on a 5-minute major. We saw it in the Seattle Calgary game yesterday. They
Yeah.
called a 5-minute major, and then they went to review it, and they upheld. Like, there needs to be some kind of further accountability now. In fairness, but we don't see those discussions behind closed doors between the director of the officials and the crew and the evaluations and the criteria that they use, that kind of thing. So I'm going to be very careful sort of how I phrase that scenario, but I did have a very sorry.
No, I'm saying, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I agree.
No, I did have a very insightful conversation with a member of the officiating community yesterday. Um, while we agreed to disagree on certain subjects of the conversation, I was enlightened about some of the scenarios that officials have to deal with. Now, this individual is an official that can make a call in a game. I'm not, right?
Yeah.
So we were able to have a very frank discussion about, different scenarios that come up in games and how they're handled and how they're approached. Now, I realize this is local hockey and not the National Hockey League, but it was still very insightful to me, and I was more appreciative that this individual took the time to walk me through a process of what I was asking, which I really appreciate. Now, again, to tie that to the National Hockey League, we're not sure what the review process is, although I'm pretty sure that we can be led to believe that the officials that we see in game one of round one of the NHL playoffs on night one of the Stanley Cup playoffs are the best of the best. And we have to take the NHL at their word for that. So just thought I'd mention that. I know that's a long-winded discussion.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you were saying.
All interesting, but let's leave it at this because we want to talk more about the Jets as opposed to reffing. But I'll just tell you this. It's not an easy job. I got a really good friend at work who's reffed at a high level, and it's not easy to do because the game is fast. It's even faster it's the fastest in the world when it's at the NHL level or if it's international hockey at the Olympics or whatever. But they got to be better. That's why they get paid hundreds of $1,000s a year and travel around because they're the best of the best. They are the best. They should act like the best, and they should be better. I don't care. It's all, Rick, they make mistakes. Yeah, okay, fine. They got to be better. That's all I'm going to say. They have to be better. It's not good enough. That game in Carolina, if I am in charge of the referees, whatever my job is, if I'm in charge of referees, I have a meeting with those two refs. Online, in person, I don't care. And I talk with them about that game because that was not good. Period.
Now, this comment needs some context. More than I sure as heck hope you're talking about this in treating that with a grain of sarcasm when you ask that question. Because I have no idea the first thing about officiating, to be honest. But anyway, welcome. Thank you for watching. Yes, we will get you on the show to talk about your latest venture, which I've been not roped into being a part of, but there'll be some exciting news as I do share a lot of Morgan's vision when it comes to his latest project. So,
so let's go. Let's talk a bit more about the Jets. So, very good weekend. Saw some of the comments. Yes, and very impressive wins over the Canes.
Yep.
And the Sabres. It's not, you could look at it one way and say, well, more impressive would have been they score a goal each period. They play well all 60 minutes and they win 3-1 and 3-2. And so in this, you could say, well, they didn't play well. Like for the Sabres game, they didn't really play well until the third period. For the Canes, they didn't play till the third period. They had spots here and there, even with the Sabres. Actually, I shouldn't say that. They had spots where they could have scored, but they didn't. So all that to say, pretty impressive. Winning on the road, back-to-back, even winning in the Sabres rink after playing the day previous in Carolina. Very impressive. The Jets are a very good hockey team. I mean, I'm still suspicious of some things. I still don't know if they are tough enough to make a run through the Stanley Cup gauntlet. It's not a playoff, it's a gauntlet. And I don't know that they're tough enough, if they're large enough, if they're strong enough, physically, mentally, whatever. They've got some small guys that haven't been through that grind, or maybe whatever. They're going to shrink a little bit when it starts to get harder to find space on the ice. But that being said, they're the second best team in the league now. They're playing well. And a lot of that, I believe, is their system. It's, the goaltenders. It's the system that they're playing. Even if they get down a goal or two, they stay in their system. They keep plugging away, and they're going to get chances because they have offensive talent and they have offensive ability. And Josh Morrissey is just playing out of his mind right now. He's right there. And Mark Scheifele, I have to say something about that goal. That was the Carolina game where Morrissey kind of made a little pinch in down the middle and did sort of a poke on a power play. I guess the puck was trying to get out, and then they caught it and they shoved it back in, shoved it to Scheifele. And that little dirty dangle that he put on that goalie and turned him inside out, went to his backhand. That was nasty. That was so pretty. I watched that about 6 different times, again and again, and how he faked them out with a little head tuck, made his body go one way and then the other. I tell you, Mark Scheifele, you can say what you want. That kid has got talent. Oh, has he got talent? He's just fun to watch. He's just fun.
Sorry, I'm just working on some news here, Rick.
Okay. I will keep talking.
It appears that the Vegas Golden Knights have acquired Anthony Mantha from the Washington Capitals.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was on the phone with. I had somebody alert me to that to mention it on the show. Anthony Mantha to Las Vegas. The return is unknown. This coming after the Vegas Golden Knights replaced Mark Stone on LTIR, questionable for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, and no, interesting though that really Washington is saying we're sellers now. I'm just looking here; they're 4 spots out of a wild card, or 1 or 2 spots, but they're like, what is this? 7 points? 7 points out of a wild card spot. So
that leads to another question that I wanted to talk to you about, but we'll do that after tonight. I have some questions about the Dallas game.
Okay, let me just finish my point though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Interesting though that Vegas, to your point, I think they realized Mark Stone and they said, well, we're hoping to get him back for the playoffs. I don't think he's going to be back. I heard it's a very lengthy recovery. And, as great as Mark Stone is, I know the Jets, they're talking about, if the Jets could sign him as a free agent there, that was a few years back. Yes, he's a Winnipeg boy. Yes, he won a Stanley Cup with Vegas last year. But Mark Stone is very fragile. We have a Mark Stone on our team. His name is.
Here's the thing. Do you remember, Rick, how adamant I was at the time? And a lot of people that know me from hockey circles will remember how adamant I was at that point in time that Mark Stone should be a Winnipeg Jet. And that was probably
pay him $10 million a year.
That was probably the right conceivable move at that time. But knowing what we know now, might have been a blessing in disguise for the Jets that he went to Vegas.
Who knows? All I'm saying is, for $9.5 million a year, you better play 82 games a year. It's the same thing. Nick Ehlers, we're having this discussion last night at my hockey game, and he's a great hockey player. I want to have a discussion about this later. Guys are frustrated with him because he could be very, he's kind of a one on against the world guy, and he doesn't sometimes play as a teammate maybe as well. And when he scores goals, you tend to be individual efforts as opposed to creatively working with the team. I don't think that, but a lot of these guys were really down on Ehlers, and they're saying we should trade Ehlers for a top right shooting defenseman, just straight up. something, get value from him now while he's valuable. And I said, you can't trade away Ehlers. He's too valuable. He's too fast. He brings so much speed and so much value to the team. And these guys were so down on Ehlers. But the one thing about Ehlers is he gets injured. He's injured quite a bit. And especially when games get a little bit more physical, he gets bounced around and he's not the biggest cat in the world, just like Cole Perfetti. Very fragile. He gets bounced around, gets in a vulnerable position, gets rocked, and separates a shoulder. And now we have another fragile little lamb in Velarde. I like Gabe Velarde. I think he's a great player. He's a top player for the Jets, and I think he's the most important piece in the trade that we did in order to ship out Pierre-Luc Dubois. But Velarde's not in the lineup enough. When he's in the lineup, he's great, but he gets injured. And I don't know, like same thing with Ehlers. These guys, and Mark Stone is the same way. Like, I'm going to pay a guy $6, $7, $8 million, $10 million for Mark Stone, and he misses huge chunks. He missed the season before the Vegas won the Cup. He missed a huge chunk of that season. The season that they won the Cup, he missed 20 games. Now he's missed another huge chunk of another season. It's like 3 years in a row. That guy is fragile, and I don't know as a team how you overcome that. So Vegas is smart. They went out and got Mantha, and he's a big, strong kid. Is he Mark Stone? No, but is he good? Yeah, he's good. He'll fit in. He'll be excited to be on a very good hockey team. Although the Red Wings were playing, Washington was playing better, but not so great lately. But
there's also further reporting, according to reliable sources led by Chris Johnston of TSN and The Athletic, suggesting that the Pittsburgh Penguins, in an ideal world, would like to have a deal in place for Jake Guentzel as early as tomorrow night. So interesting. There's a lot of movement. Speaking of which, the trade deadline is Friday. That's why all this is happening.
Correct. But do you think the Jets are going to do anything?
I totally think the Jets are going to do something. And I totally think the Jets are going to go after a winner and a depth defenseman. I think there's going to be
defenseman? We already have depth defensemen. We got 3 guys that can't get into the lineup.
Yeah, there's going to be a guy that has won a Stanley Cup coming here. I just don't know who it is.
To play on the second line?
Maybe.
Second line. I could see a second line winger to play with Monahan and Ehlers.
To me, the ideal fit is Jake Guentzel, but that is way out to lunch.
Jake Guentzel is like Ehlers. We don't need another Jake Guentzel. We don't need another Ehlers. I don't want another guy who scores a lot during the regular season and then needs to play with Sidney Crosby in order to get 40 goals. I don't want that. I want somebody who kind of goes through the season and he doesn't really shine bright, but then playoffs come and suddenly he's valuable. Tyler Toffoli is a great example of that.
Although it doesn't sound like as of this minute that the New Jersey Devils have any interest in moving him.
That's fine. But I'm just saying Mantha's another one of those guys. He's a good skater, big kid, goes to the net. His value will come in the playoffs. And look at Vegas. They get bigger again, add another big monster on the wing. So, I don't know what the Jets are going to do. It's a good question. I don't know who's still out there. I wouldn't get Adam Henrique. I think he's too old and I don't think he's that type of player. But I don't know who's available. But
how about Buchnevich? To me, the guy that's very interesting. But apparently, if you read the sources out of St. Louis, it starts at 2 first-round picks.
Yeah. Is he an unrestricted free agent?
No, he has 1 more year left.
And they want 2 first-rounders?
Yes.
Yeah, well, you could tell him to go pound sand because
it's like, I want this, but I'm not going to get it. The want list can be whatever you want. The reality is what you're going to get.
Okay, well, let me put it out here. The Jets are
the other thing is, I want $1 million. Doesn't mean I'm going to get it.
Fine. The Jets are not going to do. Sorry, I'm going to move my fingers. They're not going to do 2 things. They're going to do. If they do something, it's going to be 1 thing. What do you think? You think they should? What if they can select 1 thing? Do they get a second line forward, or do they get another defenseman?
I've long said that they need to find somebody, and I know these guys are not grown on trees and they have to go through the draft and develop model. They need to find a defenseman with some size that can play with Josh Morrissey. But that will not be accomplished at this trade deadline, I don't think.
You know that right now, Dylan DeMello, I know he's not a big guy. He doesn't get a lot of points. He gets some points, but do you know that Dylan DeMello has the second best plus minus in the whole league? And his
I knew he was up there.
And his Corsi rating on defensemen, other than scoring, but all the other analytics, he's off the chart.
I knew he is, but again, it's in the playoffs when those guys get pushed to the back wall. I mean, look at the size of our defense when we went into the playoffs in 2018. Trouba, Byfuglien, Myers,
Sherratt.
To me, that was the demise of this franchise starting. If what was with the Dustin Byfuglien retirement, Trouba not wanting to be here, I think if you know what you know and what you found out later on, I think the Jets made a more concerted effort to keep Ben Sherratt at the time. But
maybe
you didn't have the benefit of that information that you had. But to me, Rhett, a lot of this discussion spurs on to another game that happened in this stretch, the loss to Dallas, where I felt like the Jets were severely outmatched for a large portion of that hockey game. The speed and skill in which Dallas comes with, the size in which they come with on the wing, their defense does not spend a lot of time in the defensive zone, almost any in that game. You could say, okay, the Jets chose a bad night to have a bad day to have a night off. Well, they lost twice at home to Dallas already. Now they've lost a third time. I think there's a trend here.
Well, what is the trend? It's a good thing. We were chatting about that last night at hockey too. We get all this chatting before the game and after the game, and there were several of us that were saying, actually, there was a couple of guys saying, wow, anybody can have a bad night. Any team loses to anybody and blah, 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 blah. But then one of the guys said, and I tend to agree with him too. I don't know if it's true or not, but what I observe is that the Dallas Stars, they're not overwhelming on offense. Like they got some guys there.
Nope.
Seguin is hurt right now. Ben, I think he plays on the third line, but they got Rupe Hintz, they got Robertson there. They got a few players who can score. They only have to score 3 goals a game to win.
And Colvin, like, oh my.
Yes, I know, but here's my point. But my point is they got big cats on defense. They are like how Vegas was last year and St. Louis was a few years ago and how the Bruins were. They got big guys that can skate. And it's hard to play against the Dallas Stars because they play their system. They play it well. The forwards help the defense, and the defense can skate. They can move the puck, and they're big cats. That Hiskinen and then Hakanpää or whatever. Those are big guys. I saw the Stars play when they were here on that afternoon game on a Saturday a few months back, where the Jets lost, I think 2-0 or 2-1, whatever it was. They got big defensemen. And so what? Now you're playing Dallas. You know what that is? That's a playoff series. That's a playoff style that they're playing. And the Jets, I think, get exposed every once in a while to playing against the team that plays their system really well and that plays tough and that manages the ice well and makes it hard for you to be creative offensively with room. And they're big and they're tough and they're hard to play against. And that's Dallas. And when the Jets come up against a team like that, they tend to struggle. Now you could say, well, it was Dallas and it's a road trip. They won the other 2 games and Carolina is a pretty good team. And okay, yeah. And, the Sabres were playing really good. They'd won 6 of 7 and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I'm just saying when the Jets go up against bigger teams that play a style, that play a system, a playoff game, they get exposed a little bit in that they're not strong enough and tough enough. They seem to be, at least on the surface when I look, to overcome that type of game being pushed against them.
Here's
and in
the
the
other
playoffs,
thing.
just let me finish. And in the playoffs,
I know
that's every game. That's every game. Like what they play against Dallas, that's going to be every team. Then that's not just going to be the Stars. Anybody they play is going to play their system. They're going to go kitty bar the door, and they're going to finish checks, and they're just going to leave it all on the ice because every game is do or die. I don't know that the Jets have enough grit.
Here's my concern too.
And they get exposed against teams like Dallas. That's my opinion. What do you think?
No. Here's my opinion on that too. It's one thing to get exposed at that one night in the season, then you move on to the next game and next game and next game and next game and next game.
Yep.
You have to remember, in the playoffs, you're playing the same team 4 times out of 7. Can you replicate that style 4 times out of 7? And an honest answer. And I would say no, you can't without some help.
Excuse me.
Yep. The reason the Jets beat Nashville in that physical Game 7 was their defense was a little bit better than Nashville. Then they scored a timely goal and had 2 Game 7 goals from Paul Stastny, who was that deal that nobody saw coming at the trade deadline. And everything happened to be exactly right because Connor Hellebuck outdueled Petrarani at the time. But can you honestly tell me, and can anybody honestly tell me in the chat, the Jets as currently constructed would beat Dallas 4 times out of 7 in succession?
Not in succession.
That answer is no to me right now.
No, they have to win 4 out of 7. They don't have to win 4 in a row.
No, 4 out of 7.
Yeah.
Could they beat Dallas 4 out of 7?
I think they could. I don't think it'll be. At least they haven't shown me that they can. Handle. They haven't shown that they can handle a team like Dallas as their size and their speed and their tenacious.
This is touching on another very important point. I think what we're talking about is a much broader discussion, right, about why it's important for the Winnipeg Jets to finish first in their division. Because you set yourself up with a matchup with either Dallas or Colorado, whichever way the standings happen to go. To me, I would like a much better shot at an LA and a Nashville, just as an example, than I would over a Colorado because you finished second, or Dallas because you finished third because Colorado catches fire in the second half.
Well,
your chances are a little bit better being the 1 seed than they are being the 2 or 3 seed, just for that reason. And for me, I would much rather have Dallas and Colorado pound the daylights out of each other for 4 out of 7, and then have to deal with that winner after a 6 or 7 game series that goes the way of one way or another, right? You know what I mean?
I get it. You're right, because if the Jets end up in first place, Colorado and Dallas play each other, and then one of them eliminates the other. So now you're going to play the winner of Colorado and Dallas in the second round if you win your first round, as opposed to playing them the first round. But at some point,
assuming you're going to
have to play good teams. At some point, you're going to have to beat 4 good teams. They're all playoff teams. Now, the only I wouldn't say downside, but the thing is, this year, I just think in general, I think the Western Conference in general is much stronger than the Eastern Conference. I just think overall, in general, if you look at Vancouver, Vegas, Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg, like there's 5-6 teams there from the West that you could easily say they have a shot. They could win.
No, and this is the other point of why I think the Winnipeg Jets need to do something. Is there a runaway favorite in the West right now?
No, I would say no. Right now, no, there isn't.
You just answered my question of why I think the Winnipeg Jets should do something at the trade deadline.
Okay, so let's talk hypothetical. Okay, fine. But what are you going to do? Like, Monahan comes in, he gets a chance to acclimatize himself to the team. He's a good cat. He fits in. He's a second-line center. That's what they needed. Somebody big that can win faceoffs, kill penalties. He's offensively talented. He plays
and help the power play.
I know, it's amazing. So it's all good. But what are you going to do now? Somebody you bring in, like, I'm just thinking, if you would somehow trade, I'm just saying, I don't know who this would be, but if the Jets would somehow find a guy that's a big right-hand shooting defenseman, tough, offensive, very good defensively, big size that can play with Morrissey. Well, then you got to move DeMello somewhere. So you got to move him down probably to the third pairing then. You move him down and you get him to play with Samberg. Okay, now you move Schmidt and
out of the lineup.
Schmidt out of the lineup permanently, and Stanley, and unless somebody gets injured, and you're going to have injuries here or there. I mean, it's just going to happen because it's the way hockey is. So I just don't know about, like, is the Jets' problem on the defense? Like, it's almost like what we're talking about, and maybe just put it on, like, what we're talking about is the hypothetical, right? Like, it's
Right.
not like right now the Jets are exposed defensively. That's the problem, is that the Jets are actually one of the best teams in the NHL. Over 60 games, over 3/4 of the year, they've been one of the best teams defensively. Between Hellebuck and their system and playing smart defensively and forwards helping out, they've been one of the best teams. So what we're talking about is we're saying make this huge trade, bring in this right-hand shooting defenseman, first pairing guy, probably trade away a first rounder next year and a huge prospect, a huge valuable prospect, in order to bring some guy in to play on the first pairing. And for what? On the speculation that we might need that guy maybe in the playoffs. I'm not sure you make a trade like that and throw away all those assets because you think you might have to do something in the event that that's what happens in the playoffs.
Okay, so let me
I
pose. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just gonna play devil's advocate to your scenario.
Okay,
After
go
the
ahead.
deadline, the Winnipeg Jets lose Josh Morrissey for any point in time.
I'm sorry,
Then
do
what?
the Jets what?
If they lose Josh Morrissey at any point in time
After the trade deadline? Like, if
after
they
the
lose
trade
the-
deadline, and they hypothetically stand pat.
Okay, but then you've got other guys that can play. I mean, Josh Morrissey is Josh Morrissey. It's like saying, well, what are you going to do if the Avalanche lose Cale Makar? I mean, I put him right up there with Cale Makar or Quinn Hughes. What is Vancouver without Quinn Hughes? They're
Yeah.
not much. They lose a lot. Now they got other guys that can play, but your team changes, the offense, the things that he does to create turnovers, to move the puck up. You got to get other guys to fill in the blank. So, but you're not going to make a trade in the speculation that one of your star players may get injured. I just don't make trade.
No, I also think, to your point, if the trade is there, they just need to not only look at this year as a trade possibility, but also how can they help their team in the future, with the possibility too that Rutger McGroarty joins this lineup at some point before the playoffs.
Yeah. I don't know that that's going to happen, or how much he's going to join in the playoffs. And he's just going to get from being a college hockey, now you're going to get ramped up and be in the playoffs and have put in any contribution.
I mean, Brendan Tanev and Andrew Kopp both did it as a point of reference.
Okay. But they didn't contribute much. They didn't do much. So
I'm just trying to paint the scenario. I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm just for the sake of this discussion.
I'm going to say this. I do not think the Jets are going to do anything. I just don't. I think they made their forward trade. They got Monahan. Velarde's got to get healthy. He's got to see an herbalist and start drinking more green tea and eating more vegetables, and maybe getting some vitamin D and the calcium supplements to make his bones stronger, because he's out there like an 85-year-old woman on Geritol pills. I mean, he's way too fragile. Like, you got to get stronger, cat. Like, so, but once Velarde gets healthy, they got good forwards, and they got enough guys sitting in the press box between Kapari right now and Perfetti are both sitting in the thing. They got
Couple more things.
Wait, let me finish. They got that, and on the defensive side, I wouldn't make any trade, because what are you going to give up? You have to give up another first rounder, some prospect, to bring in some guy. The Jets got guys. They got Stanley. They got Heinola down in the minors. They got guys that can come up if Morrissey gets hurt. they might put Morrissey on the first pairing with like DeMello. I could see them doing that because he's the same type of offensive puck moving defenseman. I was at the Moose game on the weekend when when the Moose beat the Texas Stars 7-3 on Saturday afternoon. Heinola, he quarterbacked the power play there, looked very good, very efficient. He reminded me a lot of Josh Morrissey and how he moved the puck around. He's a left-handed shot. So I personally would not do anything with the Jets. The Jets have a very good team. Sure, somebody's going to get injured. It happens, but they got lots of depth. Look at the depth now. They lose Velarde and they win on the road against Carolina and the Sabres without Velarde in the lineup, who you could argue is their number one right winger and could be in their top 3 forwards on the team after Scheifele and Connor. So they got depth. I wouldn't. For me personally, I'm not making any more trades. I'm not trading away any more future for the present. These are your guys. You went to war with them all year. They got you to where you are, second in the league. After 60 games, you got 1/4 of the way to go. Let's bring it home, baby. That's how I see it. But anyway.
Okay. A couple things I want to talk to you about around the Jets before we come back to the Jets and talk about the Wheat Fideas.
Okay.
Lindy Ruff fired in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Last night or yesterday. In comes interim head coach. Travis Green, who was in Vancouver. That's why I had Vancouver in my head.
But he was an assistant to Lindy Ruff in New Jersey.
Yeah, so he was former head coach of the Vancouver Canucks, now back behind the bench with New Jersey. Are you surprised?
No, I'm not surprised. But you know what? Lindy Ruff is a good coach. Like he's won. I think he's won the most games of any active coach up until the point that he got fired. But there's a problem in New Jersey. The problem in New Jersey is they don't have consistent goaltending. They've got offensive forwards. They've got a lot of young talent. They've got skating ability. They've got puck pressure. They've got a really good power play. They've got a ton of talent, but they don't have elite goaltending. And that's the problem. And that's why actually we were chatting about this last night. We're talking about, can you imagine if the Jets went all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals and they won it this year? Like the Jets finally, they won the Avco Cup and the WHA, but the Jets win the Stanley Cup this year. Can you imagine that? And I said, it would just be nuts. I mean, people would just go crazy in Winnipeg. And it would be great. One time for the Jets to win the Stanley Cup in my lifetime would be amazing. And then we started talking about, who would be the Conn Smythe winner. And we almost unanimously said, if the Jets win the Stanley Cup, as great as that team is, they win the Stanley Cup because of their number one goaltender. Connor Hellebuyck wins the Conn Smythe going away, that it's not even close. Even if Scheifele gets 35 points, you're on mute. You're on mute.
He's already won the Vezina Trophy. Never mind the Conn Smythe.
We'll see. We'll see. The American writers are funny sometimes. But anyway, I'm just saying, if they win, it's going to be Hellebuyck. And you know why? Because you got to have elite goaltending. Your team is great. Look at the Jets. Look how they were against Carolina. They weren't good. They had so many shots on net against them. Hellebuyck kept them in there. Yeah, they were down 3 goals. It could have been 6-0 with some of the chances that Carolina had. And I'm just saying, sometimes you need your goalie. Not sometimes. A lot of times you need your goalie to bail you out when you don't play well as a team in front of him, and vice versa. But it tends to be more on the goalie because the other team is going to push back, and you need your goalie to make big saves. If you're up or if you're down 2-0, you can't let that team score a third goal and put you in the hole 3-0. You got to keep your team in it to provide them a chance to score a goal to make it 2-1 and now make the game close and interesting. Hellebuyck does that. New Jersey's goaltenders do not do that. The vast majority of the league do not have goaltending like the Jets.
And here's the problem. Like New Jersey's problem, last offseason, we were told they were in on Connor Hellebuyck via trade. I know. It's funny how the problem that we thought they would have actually materialized all these months later. And the coach needs to fall for below average goaltending.
Yeah, and then you're right. And so that's why my point was, Why are we firing the coach? We should fire the general manager. He knew that team was not good enough on the goaltending side, and he went into the season anyway. He hasn't pulled the trigger on the Markstrom yet. I think it's now it's too late. He should have done it 3 weeks ago or a month ago when the Jets pulled the trigger on Monahan. The general manager in New Jersey should have pulled the trigger on Markstrom then, and he didn't. Yeah. Now you got what you got.
And now his coach has no job because he somehow got a better responsibility.
They're not going to do it. They can't make up that many points. Like they're in essence they're one game below 500 New Jersey, so they're not going to make that up. They're just not good enough. And my whole point is getting back to throwing some props for Hellebuck and for Brossoit. I would argue they are the best tandem of goaltenders in the league. I think you said that earlier.
The first two Laurent Brossoit starts are now history.
The what?
When everybody was concerned, but he was giving up 4 and 5 goals early in the year.
It happens. This guy's Hellebuck. He gave up 4 goals, 5. It happens. Like they're not robots. Like they're human. And you always people say, "Oh, the Jets had a bad game." Yeah, you know why? Because the other team's trying to win. The Jets don't go out there like it's not like the Harlem Globetrotters of hockey playing against the Washington Generals of hockey, and they're just going to roll over and let the Jets win every game. The other team's pushing back. The other team's trying to score. So what happens once in a while? You get a bad game, you get a bad night, things go sideways, whatever. But I'm just saying, in general, the Jets have had probably the most consistent goaltending. If you look around the league, they've had the most consistent goaltending, and they have the highest save percentage. They are just very good, and they're very fortunate to have Hellebuck and Brossoit, which will be great in the playoffs. If one of them gets injured, the other one can fill in. It's fantastic, and they're going to be the ones that are going to help the Jets win the Stanley Cup. If the Jets never win the Stanley Cup, even get to the Stanley Cup final, it's going to be because of their net minding. And it's going to be
the return on Anthony Mantha for the Vegas Golden Knights.
Okay.
Brace for impact, Winnipeg, you're about to cry. A 2nd-round pick in 2024 and a 4th-round pick in 2024. That is it.
Yeah, but you know what? There's another thing. How much money does Mantha make? Like, Vegas has cap room because they threw Mark Stone onto long-term LTIR, right? So they could free up that cap space. Other teams don't have, like, I think Mantha probably makes $5 million a year, probably $4 or $5 million. I think he signed a free agent deal with Washington after he left the Red Wings. So I'm just saying, who has that space to put Mantha on your lineup? Vegas does, because Vegas has that LTIR situation. I don't think the Jets have even that room. They'd have to basically trade somebody away, or they'd have to cut somebody. Well, you can't cut somebody, but I mean, they'd have to trade away a salary in order, or get the other team to eat some of the salary, which another team's not going to do if they can find somebody to trade away the guy and to trade away all the salary. So that's what I'm saying. I just don't think the prices to be paid now are going to be so stupid and so exorbitant. I just don't think it's worth it. Somebody wants to go.
Here's the thing.
Pay a king's ransom. Just wait. Somebody wants to go out and pay a king's ransom for Markstrom, or pay a king's ransom for, I don't know who else would be available right now as a forward, but go ahead. Honestly, I don't think Cheveldayoff is going to do it. I think he has such a hard time trading away draft picks and prospects, because we're a draft and develop team. He's made his play. He got a guy. I think that's it. They're in. But anyway.
Here's the other interesting thing. By the way, there's since been a correction. That 4th round is in 2026. So.
Oh, boy.
That is it. Barry Trotz was on a radio show, okay?
Yeah.
I was asked about the prices at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
This is a quote from Barry Trotz, the general manager of the Nashville Predators. The prices are ridiculous for what general managers are asking for players, for rentals and all that. But I'm a rookie GM. I don't know a whole lot.
See, he's playing tongue in cheek. He says Barry Trotz is a funny guy. Yeah, but what do I know? I just fell off the turnip truck yesterday. Yeah, okay, Barry. You've been in the league as a player,
general manager
for 50 years, but okay.
Yeah, one general manager that was very busy on the weekend doing a very important piece of business, Patrick Oveen in Vancouver, has now moved Elias Pettersson into the top 5 in AAV in the NHL. A new 8-year contract, 92 point something million dollars. Thoughts?
Great. I'm happy for him. He wanted to be. I'm happy for Vancouver. They can have Pettersson. He's a good hockey player, but how many years is that deal? 9,
8.
8, 8 years at 9 million a year, or 9.5
Eight,
or something.
8 at 12 and a half, I think.
12.5 million a year.
Yeah, 96 million something.
Okay, that's a great deal for the next 4 years. How old is Pettersson? Is he 29? I think he's like 28,
Yeah.
29. I think the first 5 years, 5 years of that contract, or 6 years, the last 2 years of that contract, that last $25 million that's going to be owed, that's going to be an albatross. But you know what? That general manager doesn't care. He's probably not even going to be there. It's going to be the owner's problem. They're going to have to buy him out. It'll be the next guy that'll be there. And if they win a Stanley Cup between now and 5 years or 6 years from now, Vancouver with Pettersson in the lineup, it's worth every penny. So
Let
is what it is.
us also remind our friends. Sorry, I lost the window here what I was looking at. As of right now, the Vancouver Canucks are only scheduled to pick 3 times, twice in the 6th, once in the 7th.
Yep.
The 4th and 3rd round picks this year are conditional on various circumstances.
Yep.
If there's no definition of spelling all in, I don't know what is.
I know. Yeah, they have no draft pick. I said for sure. I heard for sure in the 1st or 2nd round this year, or this coming year.
By the way, the AAV for Elias Pettersson, I just looked it up, is 11.6
Okay,
million.
Still almost $12 million. You know what? He's a great hockey player. You know, and so now when you look at that and you look at Scheifele, 8 and 8, right? Wasn't it him and Hellebuck 8 and 8? 8
Yeah,
for
8.5.
Okay, that's a steal then compared to 11.5. So
yeah, it is.
So let's talk. We got 5 minutes here, roughly 7 minutes. Let's talk about the Jets that are to come. Interesting. It's a comment here. I knew Seattle played last night against
Calgary.
Played very well. Yeah, they won 4-2. But this is
Ben literally having his head decapacitated on the hit. That was nasty by Martin Prospero.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. Yeah, but he's going to get a call from the league, I'm sure.
Yep, he's got a hearing tomorrow. So
is he still in the lineup then tonight? Yeah.
No, he's not. He's not playing tonight. They were traveling to Calgary. Prospero's on Calgary. He had been.
Oh, sorry, right. I think he's right. He's out. No, but the guy that he injured was out of the lineup.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen Seattle's lineup today.
No, it's interesting.
Notes from a beat writer in Seattle. They're going to hold out Alex Wenberg for trade-related reasons. Wenberg is the center for the Seattle Kraken.
He hasn't been to line up the last 3 games or so. It hasn't been just.
This will be his second tonight.
Or second or 2. I thought it was 3 games, but okay.
Which leads me to my last question before we talked about the Jets this week leading up to Monday.
Okay.
Are we in a spot where we can declare all 16 tickets to the Stanley Cup playoffs secure?
What?
Are we in a position where we can now know the playoff fields for both conferences, given the distance between 8th and 9th? And what bearing does that have on the trade deadline on Friday, if any?
Okay, well, let me see. You got 72.
It's 6 and 7 points, I think, in both conferences.
It's 6 points in the Atlantic and the Metro, and 9 points in the Central.
No, are you looking at the wild cards?
Yeah, no, I'm talking the wild cards versus the regular. The only one that seems to be pretty close right now is LA. LA is right behind Vegas right now in terms of
yeah.
And
I'm looking at here right now, Rich. As far as just make sure you're using the wild card tab when you look at the standings.
no. Yeah, actually, no. Well, it depends on if you're looking at winning percentage or points. It's hard to say. But the only team that seems to be, or the only place where there is a real, if you want to say, competition in terms of getting in, I think the wild cards and the positions are a little bit more concrete in the East. In the West, because in the East you've got Detroit and Tampa Bay are the two wild cards, and then the next closest team is the Islanders, who are 6 points back. So that one is a little bit more confirmed. Whereas in the West, you've got LA, Vegas, and Nashville all kind of slugging it out for 2 of the last 3 wild cards, and the rest of the teams are 6 to 7 points behind them.
Yeah, Seattle's 5. St. Louis is 5 points behind Nashville right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that's a lot of game. That's a lot of points to climb in roughly 20 games. So it's
would your answer to my question be yes?
I would say for the most part, yes. I mean, but again, something can happen. A team can start to tank because they, lose a star player, and it can go sideways in 10 or 15 games.
So I asked the question: are the Winnipeg Jets going to the playoffs?
Oh, the question you should ask is are the Jets going to end up in first place overall and win the President's Trophy? And are they going to be first place in their conference and in their division?
I think they win the division, lose the conference. That's my hunch.
Okay, so they lose out to Vancouver then. Okay.
Because I think Vancouver does something at the deadline.
Okay.
Over and above what they already did.
I think too. I think the Jets, barring an injury, I mean, anything can happen. They can get an injury, but I think the Jets are playing very good hockey right now. Even if they lose a game, they still play well, right? Yep. Even against the Stars, they were in the game. Yeah, they got pushed around. They had chances to score in the Dallas game. They just didn't finish, right? So I'm saying they're not showing up. They're playing well. They've played consistently. They're 9-2 in their last 11. So they're just a very good hockey team, and I could see them winning out of their last 22 games. I could see them going 16-6, getting another 32 points.
Not very well might win the conference, Rich. Never mind the division.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I could see them ending up in first place in the Central. I really do. Actually, what's funny is I was watching one of the sports shows right at the beginning of the year, maybe a month in, and the Jets were doing okay. And Colby Armstrong, they were going back and forth, and they're saying, well, I don't know what you get, because he talks there with there's that one the guy that played for the Canes and for the Kings, Justin Williams, and there's Colby
Mr.
Armstrong.
Game 7.
And then Anson Carter, I think, is there. Is that Anson Carter? Is there? I think it's
it's the Rogers Monday Night panel.
It runs a panel, and then with the lady there who hosts it, and they were going back and forth saying, who's going to win the Central? And this guy's saying this, the Jets, and they were saying, and Colby Armstrong saying, I don't know about you guys, but I said since the beginning of the year, I believe the Jets are going to be first place in the Central. And Anson Carter and Justin Williams said, they couldn't. They said, get out of here! Are you out of your mind? And they just couldn't believe it. And Colby Armstrong says, mark my words. The Jets are going to be in first place. And slowly, the Jets have plugged along, and they've stayed in first place. So there you go. Yeah. So this week, Seattle comes in. Both the Jets and Seattle. This is their third game in 4 nights. One of our listeners mentioned that. Very true. The upside for the Jets, though, is they have a night off in between. Seattle played in Calgary last night.
At 8:30 last night.
Game. Yeah, 8:30. They didn't get into Winnipeg probably until 2:30 in the morning, local time. I'm just saying it might bode well for the Jets. I mean, it may not, but whatever. I just think the Jets are going to have a good game. It's hard sometimes after you go on a road trip, you can kind of be flat when you come back your first game. But I don't think the Jets are going to be that way. They play Seattle at home, and then they go on the road. And before
Seattle
and Vancouver. I think the Jets, it's going to be a really good week. I think they're going to win both against Seattle. I don't know if they're going to win against Vancouver. They might tie and then lose in overtime, but I could see the Jets go. I think they're going to go 2-0-1. I think they're going to play really well tonight. Hellebuck's going to be in the net, and I think they're going to look very, very good. How about you?
I think they win tonight, lose Friday, win Saturday.
Okay. Okay.
And then they come home for three after this trip before a 4-game road trip out east. So
5-game road trip.
A 5-game road trip, yeah. Islanders, Columbus, that whole trip. So
yeah.
Interestingly enough. Anyway, we promise we will be back Monday night, 5 o'clock prior to the Jets and the Capitals game at 6:30. So the Jets do play on Monday. I looked that up.
Yeah, they play at 6:30. Yep. Because that's one of the, I guess that's the Monday night game, right? That's the
Monday night game. For Red Petty, Michael just saying, thank you so much for watching. We appreciate the engagement, Rob, among others. Thank you for those of you watching on X that enjoyed our coverage today. I am told StreamYard is working on a way for those of you watching on X, formerly Twitter, to be able to comment into our show. As always, you can find us on weekly now until my playoffs end as well. The pregame show for the U18 game starts momentarily. To order your passes, you can go visit watch.gametimetv.ca. Game 1 between the Winnipeg Ice and the Yellowhead Chiefs starts in 28 minutes. Good night from Winnipeg. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you next Monday. Good night.